Good evening. This is the April meeting of the Burlington Planning and Zoning Commission. It's an appointed advisory board consisting of 5 city residents appointed by the Burlington City Council and 2 extraterritorial members appointed by the county commissioners. This board makes its recommendations to the Burlington City Council. At this time, if you have phones or something, any electronic equipment, you please put it on mute or silence. We appreciate it. Be advised, this meeting is being recorded, so try to look your best, okay? As a point of order, if you're called on for comments, please come to the microphone. Please state very clearly your name and address so it can be recorded. Public comments will be limited to 3 minutes each. And just as a point of order, if for some reason, let's say, somebody mentions, well, there's going to be a traffic problem and we discuss that, then we don't need 4 other people to come behind them and say, there's going to be a traffic problem. We pretty much, we catch on the first time. So usually when we ask you to come up, if you have something new to add, that's what we appreciate. We want your input, but we don't need a repetitive input. Staff, if you would, please call the roll of the commissioners.
Sure. Chair Black?
Here.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick?
Here.
Member Beasley?
Present.
Member Parker?
Present.
Member Rowe? Absent. Member Gamble is also absent. Member Hill?
Here.
Member Wright absent. Member Zach Nelson?
Here.
And Member Rayner?
Present.
Can you tell me real quick the last time that member Wright was here?
We can get that information for you.
Thank you. At this point, we'll look at item number 2, approval of the minutes for the Planning and Zoning Commission held on March 25th, 2024.
So moved.
There's a motion to approve. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Very good. At this point, before we get to item 3, I would like to ask if any commissioner has a conflict of interest on any of the items 3 or 4 on the agenda. Now would be the time to speak. Seeing none, we will go to item 3, rezoning 24-003. Mr. Mark Roxburgh, applicant, to present a request to rezone property from conditional business CB 878 to general business limited use GBLU. The property is located on the east side of Alamance Road and bound by Kirkwood Drive, Heather Road, and Sheets Way. The site is addressed as 2628 Alamance Road and consists of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 120757. Mr. Roxburgh?
Actually, my name is Todd Simmons, here for filling in for Mr. Roxburgh.
Your address?
209 West Stone Avenue, Greenville, South Carolina.
Okay, Mr. Simmons.
And we're civil engineer consultants working with Sheets. I have Kelly Brown and Bob Franks with Sheets here as well, in case there's any questions I might not be able to answer, but I assume you just need me to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking for and why we're here, I'm assuming. So I think you all are probably familiar with the site. It's the existing Sheets facility now. Sheets excited about being in Burlington, continue to be in Burlington, and have identified this facility as one that's ready for some upgrades. So we kind of identified this site and worked with staff as to, okay, how do we go forward into basically what we call a scrape and rebuild, where we will kind of demolish everything and rebuild, and working with staff on how's the best way to accomplish that. So staff kind of directed us to this rezoning request, to kind of go to this limited use rezoning based on, I think, the way the original zoning was done when this was built. So really what brings us here this evening is kind of the desire to rebuild a similar size store, just a new store, same number of pumps, same number of parking spaces, same access points, really just to do something kind of newer and fresher at the same location, and asking for a rezoning based on staff's guidance as the best way to accomplish that. Really, I think with that, I think we're here to maybe answer any questions or comments you guys might have.
Is it my understanding that the main change is a drive-through?
I would say if you look at it, that's probably the really biggest change to the operations from what is there today to what we have now. Yes, so we are proposing a drive-through component to this store.
Does anybody on the commission have any questions for Mr. Simmons at this time?
And do you have any plans to add EV charging stations, or is it all gas?
I might have to defer that to Kelly. I know there's times when they do EV, but that's project specific. So at this time, there is no plans for E EV.
Does any other commissioner have a question at this time?
Have you done any kind of traffic impact analysis based on adding the drive-through?
We have not. We did kind of talk through the drive-through component with staff, presented them with kind of a study as to our typical, what we typically see, and really our drive-through is not like drive-through at Chick-fil-A or any of those. It's really it becomes maybe not the best use of your time if there's more than a couple in, you know, because you have to order it and then it has to be made. So it's, and Kelly can speak to this a little more if we need to, but we don't see that being a real focus generator of traffic for the facility.
What's the average per hour? I mean, do you have any of those? I'm just curious.
I don't think I brought that with me. Kelly or Bob, do you guys know that off?
12.
About 12, that's what, okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Mr. Simmons at this time? Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate it.
This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone on this side of the room that would like to make a statement or ask a question or a comment, anyone on this side of the room? Seeing none. Does any other commissioner have any comments or questions about this item? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to recommend approval of the request to rezone the property for conditional business, CB 878 to general business limited use, GB-LU. Property is located on the east side of Alamance Road and bound by Kirkwood Drive and Heather Road and Sheets Way. Address is 5628 Alamance Road and consisting of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 1200757. The motion is based upon consistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan in that the future land use map in section 4, land use of the comprehensive plan calls for this area to be regional commercial. The request is compatible with the current use, with the current use occurring on the property and the adjacent commercial uses. The action is reasonable and in the public interest in that the comprehensive plan calls for commercial uses in the area. The request is compatible with the existing zoning and land uses in the area. The request will require the site to meet the Unified Development Ordinance UDO standards.
There's a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye. All opposed? Opposed. Sound like a roll call of the vote, please.
Sure. Chair Black,
Aye.
Vice Chair Kirkpatrick,
Yes.
Member Beasley,
No.
Member Parker,
Yes.
Member Hill,
Yes.
Member Nelson,
Yes.
and Member Rayner.
Yes, sir.
You'll receive a letter as to when the council will act on this recommendation, and they'll notify you of that, so you can be at that meeting. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Item number 4, PRCPD 23-002, Ms. Amanda Hodnier, applicant to present a request to rezone property from medium-density residential to planned development. The property is located on the north side of Williams Mill Road and Rural Retreat Road, southwest of the intersection of Rural Retreat Road and University Drive. The site is addressed as 3949 Rural Retreat Road and consists of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 106711. Mrs. Hodnier?
Hodier.
Thank you. Hodnier.
Thank you. It's nice to see all of you again. Amanda Hodier, 804 Green Valley Road, Suite 200 in Greensboro. So I'm here tonight on behalf of the property owners, and then Switzenbaum and Associates, who is the contract purchaser and would-be developer of the property if this proposal is favorably received by the city. So appreciate your time tonight. I have with me tonight Mr. Sam Switzenbaum, who is the founder and principal of that firm. You're going to hear from him. There's no one better to tell you about this project. It's his passion and his vision. But I want to quickly talk about a couple of the reasonableness and land use plan consistency elements, and then I'm going to hand it over to him and the rest of the design team to talk about the specifics. So if you've got a couple things in front of you from us, this one is the one I'm going to be looking at first if you want to follow along with me. So looking at the existing land use pattern, at the bottom of your page, of course, this is the I-40 corridor. As you move as you move north up along University, you come through all of this commercial intensity, the Target shopping center, the movie theater shopping center, Alamance Crossing. You come up all that commercial intensity, which is a major, shopping anchor for the city. And then as you go out University, of course, it eventually ebbs into single family pretty quickly. In fact, right at Rural Retreat Road, you might notice as soon as you cross over, you really get into single family, some limited townhomes. So what I would submit to you that this request does is drops in a land use of multifamily in the exact textbook location that you would look for it from a planning standpoint. You want that feathering of intensity, interstate, commercial intensity, multifamily, and then transitioning out to single family. So that was one of the reasons from the start that we liked this site for this project. It made sense on the corridor and in the land use pattern. Looking at your zoning map, of course, you see all the pink, red for that commercial intensity that I talked about, and then all that yellow is your MDR for your single-family zoning. Actually, the way Burlington's code is now, as you know, that envelops a lot of residential zoning, not just single-family. So I do want to point out and highlight to you that the specific land use we're here to talk about tonight, multifamily, could be allowed in MDR. It's just the format and scope of it that we're asking for that required the rezoning. So it already could go here. We just wanted to do it a little differently. So that takes us to what does that look like? How do we want to do it? So I want to highlight a couple aspects about the planned development request, which is, of course, what we're proposing. Now, as you know, under your new, I still call it new, your 2019 ordinance, this is the only zoning district that allows you to be super specific. It allows us to say one use that we're going to do in one way and one certain set of conditions that gets very specific. So you know not only what that one use is going to be, but you know the site plan that's going to lay it out, you know the scope and intensity of it, you know what the open space is going to look like, you know what the architecture is going to look like. So that planned development district really gives you a lot of predictability and transparency, as well as the community. So everybody knows, if approved, exactly what's on the table. Benefits of this PD, I'm gonna largely reserve this for the design team. This is, as your PD ordinance requires, it exceeds and goes well beyond what your ordinance requires in terms of landscaping, buffering, multifamily design requirements, internal development standards, all of those items are exceeded. And I will highlight, if our narrative, you see it in your staff report, all the terms and conditions and the way that it exceeds the ordinance, if you don't see something spelled out there, that means we're meeting the ordinance. So it doesn't mean that you just get to bypass. The ordinance isn't precluded. What you see before you is what's in addition to your ordinance. Otherwise, we'd be meeting the standard requirements for multifamily. So in this particular development, you're going to hear about a lot of open space. We've got 58%. Your ordinance only requires 50, over 58 actually. You're going to hear about a lot of amenities. We have pickleball courts, resort-style pool and clubhouse, fitness facilities, a putting green, picnic shelter, gathering gazebo, a shuffleboard area, walking trails, meeting spaces. The interior entrances to each building is the one-way in, security with key cards, and then you have to get in the elevator and go up to internal doors, elevated buildings. Highly desirable interior spaces in the units themselves, which you'll hear a lot more about from others. So we are offering, we like to think, a home that is very desirable and meets the needs of today's current resident who wants to live in this type of space in Burlington. But also, we're excited that this particular PD offers benefits to the larger community, not just the people who live here. The staff, we've been working with staff for almost 2 years now, for a long time, to make sure that this is the right offering in the right place in the right way for the city. And I want to highlight a few things. We have a dedicated right-of-way area that will eventually create an east-west connection through University Parkway. We do not have frontage on University. You can see the way our parcel lays out in your internal staff report. However, we're planning for it, for when that other parcel that separates us from University does develop. We want to be ready to have an outlet there and utilize that connectivity that's important for the city to have an east-west cross there. We have construction of a 10-foot wide multi-use path that comes along the frontage of our property along Rural Retreat, and that moves people safely across University and over to the Joe C. Davidson Park. A huge investment by the city for recreational opportunities, and now we have a nice, safe way for people who live in this community and beyond to get to it and to cross that facility of University safely. Also, of course, this is addition of needed housing into the city. We all need housing right now, and this helps us get there. It's also the addition of housing optionality to this part of the city. As you saw from the land use pattern map we looked at, we jumped straight from commercial to single family or attached single family here without this particular format of housing availability. So this would provide that optionality if folks were looking for that in this area. We are also consistent with the comprehensive plan. We were pleased to be able to stay consistent with that and see that staff noted that in their staff report as well. The city's future land use designation here is suburban residential. That, of course, does mean residential, and it's looking for that residential to be focused on development pattern with a lot of connectivity and pedestrian, non-vehicular walkability and connections. So on our site plan, you'll hear a lot about, and you'll see that we have a completely internalized private drive network that's all connected via sidewalks to get people to all those internal amenities that I talked about. It also gets people out to that multi-use path if they want to go across to the park or down south, get to the sidewalk system on University to walk and grab a smoothie or a coffee or do some quick shopping. So we have met those pedestrian requirements of this land use designation. We're also meeting a couple of the individual call-out goals in your comprehensive plan. Your livability goal 01 encourages housing optionality and supporting people looking for diverse housing. We've talked about that. It calls for adequate housing stock, so this helps with that as well. It also encourages responsible growth of the city's tax base. So this is another aspect that we can provide. Lastly, before I hand it over to Mr. Switzenbaum, I did want to go over our neighborhood outreach efforts. This is obviously a big project, so we did want to meet with the community, provide that opportunity for some dialogue about the project and to answer basic questions before this hearing process started. So we sent out a letter back on March 28th. We used the city's radius mailing list just because that's the protocol, so we like to abide by that. That resulted in 56 letters. I did also reach out to the Waterford HOA and the property manager who manages that HOA just to ensure that it was put on whatever neighborhood-wide communication mechanisms they have, just in case folks in that neighborhood were outside of our notification range. We didn't want to kind of notify half the neighborhood. So we did that as well. That meeting was held on April 4th. It was at a church over on Highway 70, the closest one we could find that was available to the actual project site. And we had about 40 attendees, so it was good. We had a good turnout. We had a good dialogue. Our team was there. We presented a lot of the same items that you're going to hear tonight. And we had a lot of good Q&A just about how this development's going to look, how it's going to function, things it's not going to do, things it is going to do. And it actually resulted in a change to the plan that you'll hear about from our team and I think from Ms. Lawson later on. So that's always, to me, the sign of a good meeting, when you get feedback and it results in a change that we think is for the better and furthers the plan to all the things the community and the city wants to see. So I'm here if you have any questions for me, but for now, I'm going to hand it over to Mr. Switzenbaum and the design team to talk about the project more specifically.
Hi, I'm Sam Switzenbaum. Oh my God. I live at 1024 East Cypress Drive in Pompano Beach, Florida. And hi. Everybody looks so serious. I've been doing this for 50 years. I'm happy to tell you that this is the last, I made a decision when I was flying up here tonight. This is the last dance I'm doing after 50 years of going before a municipal board. This is it. Win, lose, or draw. I invented Sycamore. It's an anomaly in the multifamily industry. You'll see pictures, you'll hear a lot of stuff. I read an article in the Wall Street Journal one day that there are 40 to 60 million baby boomers who are living in their homes who in the next 10 years are going to want to sell their home. It's their largest asset. They have a lot of equity tied up in it, and they don't want to buy another home. Number two, they don't want to go to an old age home. They want to try to maintain the integrity of their lifestyle, and more importantly, they want to stay in the same neighborhood they've lived for the last 30 years. Here's the housing stock that's available to them. You can go and walk and live in a multifamily project that has stairs going up and down, that's not secure. Or you can go into a very expensive mid to high rise, a steel construction. They're beautiful buildings, and most people can't afford the rent. So we, with our architects, he was a great guy, we created Sycamore. First one we built was in Charlotte on Tyvola Boulevard. It was a home run. We'll show you a picture. The project has no, I'm going to tell you the important things about the project, which are important to me as the developer and the owner. The project has no 3-bedroom units. None. It is not a family type of project. There are no playgrounds, there are no sandboxes. It's basically an adult community without calling it an adult community. It was designed with security in mind. It's a gated community. You can't get in unless you have an access card. The buildings are 4-story with generous lobbies. You can't get into the lobby of a building without your access card. This is particularly important for women today. We've had studies done. And it's a secure project. We want people to feel safe. That's the first thing. The amenity package is unlike anything you've seen in a community like this. This is not like a typical rental apartment community that most people don't want in their community. I've heard it. I mean, I've been doing this too long. The amenity package is gorgeous. the pool, the fitness center, the ballet studio, the garage where you can watch the football game, the outdoor fire pit, the barbecues. In part of the swimming pool, there are lounge chairs with bubble up. And it's a lifestyle community. It's for people that want to come to an apartment community and pay rent, but not sacrifice the quality of their lifestyle. So we did it. We did it. We just finished one in Concord. It's absolutely gorgeous. The Concord town and their planning board is just like you. I mean, they're citizens, and it's really strange. I'm coming into your community and asking, as Frank Lloyd Wright once said, what I do creates an indelible object on your land. There's no lemon law. You can't give it back. So we're very mindful of that. And our design team has created a product unlike any product in the multifamily industry. There are no air conditioning units outside. It's secure. The architecture is different. It's a barbell. So we have lots of corner units. The windows are bigger. And unfortunately, your electronics is down, but come here, Sam. This is our young intern, Sam. He's going to hold up the what do you call it, the drive, and show it to him. Yeah. Is that okay? You walk up there, Samuel. This is the identical building that will be built. Every building is the same. This is it. Can you all see it?
Mm-hmm. Can y'all see?
And we'll be posting this as well as the PowerPoints on the website, so you'll be able to see that after the fact.
Bring that up here, Sammy. Here's some. Put it right there. I was teaching a class at Temple University, and Sam was one of the students. He asked me for a job after the class was over.
Sam, if you'll do me a favor, if you'll turn that around and stand over there, since it's only about a minute, let those people also see what you showed us. Please. Excuse me.
Josh? I'm going to let you...
So every year is
Yes, yes, it's interesting.
Klein Architecture, we're a terrific firm, are the planners and architects for this. And rather than me sit up here and pontificate about it, I thought I'd have the designer of the site explain to you how all these buildings interact. And show the picture.
Good evening, thank you so much. I'm Josh Carrick.
Josh, excuse me.
Yep.
If I could ask you, if you could carry that over there.
Yep.
And face it this way, maybe everybody can see it. I just kind of feel more comfortable if the people who are here can also share what we're looking at. Thank you.
There's also seats up front if you want to move up forward. Feel free.
I'm sorry. Go
No,
ahead, Josh.
thank you. Address 1785 Carlton Links, Fuquay. So again, appreciate the opportunity. As Sam mentioned, yes.
Can't hear.
I guess I don't need a mic at this point.
Why don't you just hold it?
So you can just talk.
Just don't drop the mic when you're through.
All right. Well, I appreciate everybody coming this evening to listen to our story about Sycamore. So at Klein Design, we focus on making neighborhoods for all kinds of different people. And in this particular case, working with the Switzenbaum Group and Associates, really enjoy the work that they do. We get the opportunity to really kind of craft a unique facility. In this case,
You're fired.
I did it. That's what I get for. Thank you. Maybe we can set it down here. There we go. As Sam mentioned, each building is relatively the same as the others on our site. They will be 4 stories tall with a central entry point, which again is key carded. It is elevated. Elevator, everybody has a balcony or a patio.
You gotta convince us, not them.
There we go. Appreciate that. And so with it, it's a modernish architectural style that meets the, need and the very contemporary kind of environment that we're in these days as far as design goes, but it's also timeless. As Sam mentioned, we have a wide variety of different unit types. With that, there are really there's 1 bedroom and 2 bedrooms, but there are different shaped units within each building, which allows for different configurations for each tenant. Everybody will have a balcony or a patio. As Sam also mentioned, all the air conditioning air handlers will be on the rooftops, so they're out of sight. Each building is heavily landscaped and provided with a nice entry feature, as well as proximity to the local parking areas. So upon entry into the site, you're greeted by the leasing and club building, which hosts also the amenities that Sam described, kitchenette, as well as fitness areas, and then the garage area that opens up onto the patio and pool area. Then beyond that, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings. Each building has 55 units. We evenly distribute the parking around the site so that it's convenient for all the tenants. And then along the perimeter, as Amanda had mentioned, we are doing enhanced landscape buffers and preserving as many of the existing trees that we have along the corridors as possible in edge conditions, trying to limit our grading activities as we move forward. We also have a stream feature that it will be protected here in the middle. And the amenities, they're really strong here in the central piece with the pickleball, putting greens, and a gazebo.
Josh, mentioned as a result of the last meeting that we had with the neighbors,
Yep.
we made a significant change to explain that to me.
Sure. So prior to the meeting, on the far west side of the site, we did have these 3 garages along this back edge. We have moved those further away from the property line, and along that edge, we are going to keep a 30-foot natural tree buffer to the development.
How many units did you say in each building?
There's 55,
55 in each building. Oh,
and there's 6 buildings.
4 floors.
Oh, no, yes. Yes. And we will accommodate for EV spaces as well.
Where is your garbage pickup?
Garbage is here towards the center of the site. and it's adjacent to that future, or to
We have
that right-of-way
valet.
zone?
On garbage, we have valet, so that the garbage is picked up outside your residence. And that way we avoid people running all over the place with garbage.
Two of the biggest issues I've had in my career when I do this in residential, schools and traffic. Joe, this is Joe Wilson. He's our traffic engineer. We've had 2 extensive traffic studies done. 2 of them, not 1, 2. And Mr. Wilson will tell you the result of it. Thank you.
Joe Wilson, 1117 Sutter Lane, Concord, North Carolina. The location of one of these sites. Based on the requirements in the ordinance and the NCDOT checklist, we provided a comprehensive traffic impact analysis. And when we did that, we looked at worst case scenario, 1 access point on Williamson and basically coming out to Rural Retreat. We did this because there was a desire to keep any access from the adjacent community where that stub road tees into the property. And if you'll see, pretty much other than the utilities utilizing that corridor, because that's where they are and they have to connect, if you're looking down that, quote, road, you see a bunch of trees and preserved wetland, you don't even know there's anything back there. But that being the case, we performed that study looking at capacity and then safety, and then the DOT turn lane warrant analysis. In this case, we were able to maintain the same level of service as before and no additional delay with retiming the signal at Rural Retreat and University. However, there was a desire for a second access for public safety, fire, police, things of that nature. So working with the Transportation Department, they asked us to consider the rest of the development in this area. So there are 4 different developments that were occurring, as well as the one between our site and University. And they wanted us to look at options when it was time to provide that access from University through the other property and onto our property. As such, we ended up establishing that a future roundabout would be placed there. This doesn't show it because it's the responsibility of the next development. But we did a preliminary design with all of the basic geometry and preserved or dedicated the right-of-way, so when that property is developed, they will construct their entrance, it will terminate at the site with a roundabout. And the reason we did a second study was so that we could drill down and model that and make certain that that worked and we didn't back up any traffic or affect a new signal that will eventually be there at University and this extension. So we completed that study and provided that to the city staff, and that study has also been accepted. So quite honestly, we've sort of gone out of our way to plan not only for our project, but the future project and the future traffic on both sides of the road. Doing the trip gen, the distribution, and then modeling and establishing the design that can be built when that project occurs and we have access across. With that, I'll be more than happy to address any questions that you all may have.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
So the current plan is only access off of Williams?
Yes, yes.
And the future access goes directly to University. It does not come down Trimble Club or anything like that. It's in the
That's correct.
Yeah.
That's correct. Yeah. And what'll happen is, like I said, that access from Williamson was the worst case scenario, 100% of the traffic. And so we had that such that it would work. And then once this occurs, then it'll take about half that traffic away and eliminate left turns off of Rural Retreat, which will relieve that intersection for additional growth in the future.
Where's the roundabout?
There is not a roundabout shown, but all of this right-of-way is being dedicated. Okay. All the right-of-way is being dedicated so that when the future development occurs, they're going to have service station, apartments, some kind of commercial, and so this is their primary access. Well, if you look, they're so close to University that if they came in here on their own property and had to turn right or left, they wouldn't have adequate STEM. DOT wouldn't allow that access. So we're really coming all the way back and creating a roundabout, and Sam's dedicating this property to set this up so that the entire area can be developed in the future and they can build what it is they need to build.
Can we see where the roundabout is?
Yeah. So this is University here. This land is not part of our project, so we can't build it now because we don't, this isn't our, it's not part of our project. So the future developer of these parcels here are who will actually build this road. But we're planning for them to build that road by creating this area here, which will create the roundabout for a future egress or access or exit from our property to University.
But the only access you have planned now is on Williams Mill Road.
Yes,
One entrance, one exit
that's correct.
for all those apartments
That's correct.
right in front of my house. And mine.
Excuse me, but when we have public comments,
Small road.
we'll hear from you when we have public comments. Thank you.
That was the reason for the study, to demonstrate. And you got to realize that what we look at is the AM and the PM peak hour, which are the highest volume when people are commuting to work or coming home. And with this type of community, we modeled this as a traditional apartment. We didn't look at this as an age targeted or age restricted, which is a lot less. So in all, we did this as the worst case scenario. And if I can tell you, you know, in the AM and in the PM hours, there's basically these 330 units generate 1,500 trips a day. But during the AM, it's basically 31 in and 103 out. And then in the PM peak, it's 79 in and 129 out. All of this data comes from the Institute of Transportation Engineers, about a 100-year-old database that continues to regenerate and update based off of development all over the country and all over the world. So these numbers are pretty reliable. And with this kind of facility, it will probably be less than that because a lot of the folks are going to be retired. They're not going to be commuting back and forth to work or taking kids to school or anything like that. Those are things that happen at other apartment developments, but they won't be happening at this one.
How can you guarantee that if it's not age restricted?
Can't guarantee it. That's why I used worst case scenario and used complete full apartment trip gen numbers for that trip gen code.
If I may.
Thank you very much.
Yes, sir.
At this time, does anyone on the commission have any questions for any of the presenters? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a reason there's not an age restriction?
We lease to anybody that wants to come in that meets the standards for credit. I don't care if you're 20 years old or 60 years old. The project has been designed so that it appeals to a more mature tendency. I don't want to be stereotyped and say age restricted. First of all, people like to live with all ages. And in an effort to make it compatible with the age group we've targeted, we didn't put 3-bedroom units in, and we did not put what I would call young recreational facilities. It's done subtly, but I can tell you it works. I have one last thing to say. The multifamily industry in general is not well regarded in this country. It provides a service, it provides shelter, a home, but the multifamily industry, the buildings have become commodities and they get traded and sold, and a lot of them lack from good management, and people really don't want them in their neighborhood. I get it. That's why we designed this. This is unlike anything you'll see in North Carolina, Chicago, anywhere in the country. We designed a project that I'm proud to own, and that's accretive to your community. Any questions? Anybody have any? Yes, ma'am.
I have a couple of questions. Could you tell us the proposed rent or what the rents are?
I can't hear
The
you.
rent, how
The
much?
proposed rent,
This is Jeanette Hendershot, who runs our whole operation in North Carolina.
Move this down. Jeanette Hendershot, 122 Overlook Ridge Lane, Davidson, North Carolina. The rents for a 1-bedroom will be about $1,590 monthly, and a 2-bedroom will start at about $1,950 monthly.
Will there also be HOA fees and garage fees?
So there's no monthly administrative fees of that nature. We are a community that includes Wi-Fi for all of our residents so they can stream, TV and that type of thing. So there is an additional charge for Wi-Fi. And then we also have Valet Waste, which is a front door trash pickup service that comes nightly to the front door, picks up the trash out of the bag out of the can and disposes of it appropriately.
And a general question, why did you pick this area? When there's so many other areas that have a lot more room, not so congested, or becoming so congested?
That's a great question. One, you got a great community. It's growing. You have a part of your population that's mature. And the site is very, it's a terrific site because it's a little bit of an infill site. And we just like the feel of your community. We like it here.
I don't just mean Burlington, but why in Burlington, that particular area?
That site, that was site-specific. We really like that site.
Why?
It's close in, yet it's not all the way out in the boonies. It has more of an urban feel to it. And there's already housing stock around it. So the trick for us is how do we fit into a community with existing housing stock without offending it or hurting its value.
And one other question, you said you were going to buffer the front. It sounds to me like the buffer is going to be pretty small if you're going to have apartment complexes right on the
Oh, no.
drive.
No,
Did I
the
misunderstand?
buffers are very, very substantial.
Well, if this is University Drive, right? This is not the buffer. This is areas where other apartments are going to be built?
Did you answer the question?
The land along the university, that is not owned by Mr. Schlitzbaum. That's it. Somebody else may come along and develop that.
So it's not going to be left empty.
We don't have any responsibility in these areas other than to provide that access through there. But we are providing 20-foot and 30-foot bumpers along the perimeter of the site, which exceed the UDO requirements. And in some cases where we have an existing tree stand, instead of just taking all that down, we're going to preserve the existing trees as mature growth along the veg condition before we get into the development process.
The other thing you'll note is that there's always a separative item before you get to a building. So what that does is it pushes the buildings even further to the interior and away from the perimeter. So for example, So for example, you've got the buffers, which are already excessive, and then you've got the parking areas, and you've got more open space between the parking and the building, and then you go to the building. So nowhere do we have a building right up against even the buffer. So it's always a layered effect to ensure that the buildings are far away from all of our perimeters.
And the site will be heavily planted, as I described earlier, around each building, as well as within the parking areas. We'll have tree islands and trees planted in there. This was one of my very heavily landscaped project. We can show you some existing pictures of the last two projects and highlight those.
You've got some plant species data in your little presentation that we handed up if you're interested in that.
Mr. Black, I have a question while they're all up there.
All right.
There's a room full of folks here, and you guys had a community meeting, and in your presentation, you said that there were approximately 40 folks there. What did you hear? There's already been an accommodation made that I heard regarding the garages. And those have been pulled back from the property line. There's no access off of
University.
No, out of University. Nothing's coming through on Limerick. So that's going to stay T-Bone. Nothing's done there. What did they tell you in your community meeting?
There was one group that just didn't want any apartments at all.
Right.
I can't help them.
Right.
Another group, a couple of ladies, their house is in close proximity to the entrance of the property. I told them that we will landscape that and we will try to mitigate visually, which we have done, any visual impact that entrance would cause their home. Was there anything else that we heard that was specific?
We did hear questions about traffic.
Right.
We heard traffic.
Yeah, that's to be expected.
Yeah, we heard traffic. It was the typical meeting. Some of it was informational, some of it was emotional, you know.
Sure.
This kind of project, whether you like it or not, generates emotion. I've been doing this a long time. And we meet the code, but we're very sensitive to all of these issues. And we've tried to, where we enhanced the buffer, I thought that was the most important. The people that lived there had a real, they expressed an interest and asked me if I could do something. Well, I sat in the meeting with a pen, and I did it. And I told planners to move the garages and double the size of the buffer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
The 30-foot buffer you mentioned, is that made up mostly of existing trees that are there right now?
It'll be both.
Okay.
In other words, to the extent that we can save mature trees, saves me money. I don't have to buy a new tree. And we don't buy little trees. Our tree stocks are at least 3.5 inch caliber. And just so you know, landscaping is one of my hobbies, and this doesn't look like another. This is very heavily landscaped. Yes, any other questions?
Does any other commissioner have a question?
I've got one.
Go ahead, Mr. Beasley.
May I add a point to
No, ma'am.
Ms. Nelson?
Hold on.
Okay.
Go ahead, Mr. Beasley.
So, this is probably more of a philosophical question than an actual factual question.
That's okay.
There are 4 to 6 apartment complexes of similar size and weight, maybe not as well laid as the one that you've put before us tonight, within 3/4 of a mile of where you're going to plant this thing.
Yes.
There are apartments going up in Whitsett, Mebane, Graham. They finished one last year in the north side of town. There's one that's going to be well over 200 units less than a mile from where you're at right now that's going to be inside of the radius I just talked about. Why in God's name does Burlington and Alamance County need another 350 unit apartment?
Well, because you don't have anything like this, and you're not servicing a significant part of your population. And as I said to you a couple minutes ago, apartments get a bad name. I will give you the best explanation I can. I want to make money. I'm old. Let me finish. I wouldn't build a project anywhere in America that I couldn't make money on. And in order to make money, I build things that work. Are you all familiar with Charlotte? Do you know South Park Mall?
I lived in Charlotte for 11 years.
I built South Park for the Belk family. That's the quality of work I do. I would not be here, take a plane here, spend hundreds of thousands of dollars with these, and these guys are not cheap, including the attorney, if I didn't think this would be a grand slam home run. I don't need it. What makes it different is the rents are the highest in the submarket. Let me say it again. The rents will be the highest in this market for this type of product. We don't compete with all the other apartments. And this is sort of a sad thing to say, but the only person that won't be able to move in is the person that can't afford it. We don't compete. The one-bedrooms on the walk-ups are 20% less than ours. So the reason I'm here is because your community is growing. It's got great GDP growth. The economics here are great. And I'll tell you one other thing why I'm here. Your planning staff is one of the most professional I've run into. And they made us jump through hoops. I wouldn't have jumped through those hoops if I didn't think this would be a profitable endeavor. And that's the most important thing. We don't run an eleemosynary institution. We build to make money and give people quality housing. So that's why. Does that help? Thank you for smiling.
No, I knew a little bit about your work in Charlotte. I lived there for several years, and you and another developer there, I'd seen some of your work before. So
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Directly.
No, I'm not, at this stage in life, I'm not bashful. Any other questions?
Does any other commissioners have any questions at this time?
I'd like to know about external lighting.
What, sir?
What type of outside lighting are you going to have?
1 second. Who wants to do it? Go ahead, Josh.
So within the neighborhood, it will be pole lit around the parking lot areas. We won't have any wall packs or anything like that, again, on the buildings facing back out. We do our best to find a nice decorative.
Can you make sure to speak into the mic?
Yes. We do our best to try to find a nice contemporary lighting fixture that's at the appropriate height to give us good coverage within the area. We do not want to have any light spill beyond the limits of where we are. Again, that's why we try to have so much of the development within the central portion of the site and maintain as much of the existing tree canopy around the edges to help to deflect that extra lighting.
I apologize for how I'm doing this, but
It's always been that way.
Does any other commissioner at this time have any questions? Thank you.
thank you all very much.
This is, as I said, a public hearing. Limit your comments to 3 minutes. Anybody on this side, be sure to give your name and address at the microphone. Anyone on this side?
Good evening. Mark Kennedy, 4103 Cheek Point Place, Burlington, North Carolina. That's the community that's, Waterford community that's next to this development or proposal. The original land use planning document, adopted in 2019 after probably several $1 million in studies, set this property area to be medium density residential for a reason. Just to keep the stores and stuff before or south of Rural Retreat. That was done for a reason, to start a residential section going backwards from there. If this property is switched over and becomes apartment complex, those few lots that are about 10 acres along University, what becomes of those then? It doesn't make sense for those to remain medium density residential that'll probably turn into strip malls or something like that, affecting the amount of traffic that's on University. You know, if we're going to go forward with the apartments, most of the apartments are in medium density residential or 3 stories, limited to that. Switching this to a different type of designation allows for maybe a 4th floor, so maybe we keep it in medium density, keep it at 3 floors. There's some concern with all the paved area. You know, that water's got to run off someplace. I see they have some retention ponds to catch water. That water's going to run off, it's going to run into Waterford Lake and contaminate Waterford Lake more, put sediment in there. Has the developer considered buying those other parcels and making that a park area? You know, let's donate a park area to the city of Burlington, make walking trails along those few acres that are left. Talk about landscaping, you know, 3.5-inch tree. That's about as big as that microphone there. The buffer area, you know, we'd like to probably see, you know, larger trees, mature pine trees. Holly bush is something that's, you know, 10, 15 feet tall to begin with, and, you know, a good 10-foot wide, 15-foot wide that would provide a better buffer. A 30-foot buffer, I know it's probably about as wide as this room. That's not very much of a buffer. If we could expand that to requirement to 50-foot, I think would help a lot of residents. That's 55 units. You're talking 330 units, 700 vehicles. Assuming 2 vehicles per car, that's a lot more traffic going onto the road. It's not just a few more vehicles going on the road. And as far as the demographic, looking for individuals that are looking to sell their home, and chances are they have the mortgage paid off because they're 65 years old, 60 years old. I can't see paying off my house and moving into an apartment and paying $2,000 a month. So that demographic, I think it's still going to attract younger persons that are on their way to having children, if not having children. And that's my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Kennedy. Is there anyone else on this side of the...
Connie Fearnow, 4122 Shepherd Court, Burlington. My main concern is that is one area that is county. Is that going to make it go into city and take all of us into city?
That's not a decision that we make.
But I mean, how does it normally work, you know?
That's up to the county government and the city government, not the zoning commission, sorry. We just do land use.
Okay.
Sorry.
What was his answer? We couldn't hear.
They don't make the decision.
Oh.
Justin Fowler, 4002 Limerick, and I have property that backs up directly to the land in question. I just had a couple of mainly specific questions in regards to the property use. One, mitigating the runoff, because the runoff that Mark was referring to, that directly runs into my property. I'm the very first landowner where that runoff will go to. So I want to make sure there's assurances that the runoff is mitigated. During heavy rains right now, without all the concrete and everything that's going to be up there, that can rise pretty quickly. And so that land, it's fairly flat, and that can easily overflow into my backyard and some of my neighbors' backyards. And then it also flows down into the Waterford Lake. We have a dam down there. There is concern for overflow of that, and trying to help to mitigate any concerns with damage to the lake down there. Two, it talks about the buffer and a 30-foot buffer. I mean, that's a 10-yard buffer. If anybody plays golf, a little 10-yard chip that's not a lot. So expansion of that to a larger buffer, I think would be welcome. That little road that they mentioned that runs into Limerick, there's a little stop right there. I'd love to have more assurances than, hey, it's just not going to happen. They talked about having an easement onto University. That's kind of a pipe dream. I mean, they don't own the land. They're talking about it. They're going to say maybe someone else is going to do that. I want to make sure that that access doesn't actually come to Limerick if they can't get access onto University. Children play there. It's just a dead-end road at this point. And then increasing, we want to do something to deter foot traffic from if this apartment complex is built into our area. And then finally, they talked about having the water and sewer come off of Limerick. Why they can't get that from University, I'm not sure. They just said it just has to come from Limerick. Why can't it come from a different area? I worry about there's going to be 350, 400 apartments that are hooking into a water and sewer that was built for a smaller development. I mean, ignorance, I don't know if our, if our infrastructure can handle something like that. So I think they need to look into that too. And basically just kind of in general, I know they talked about this doesn't attract a younger population. I think we do worry about that as far as the schools and the overflow, and they've talked about traffic. Obviously there's going to be a concern with that, but building these apartments, whether or not it's going to bring in kids, we know that that's going to happen. We already have school systems that are underfunded and overpopulated, and so have we done any concerns or work up for that? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else on this side of the room? Anyone on this side of the room?
My name is Rhonda Custer. I live at the end of Williams Mill Road. My
Your
neighbors,
address?
4314B Williams Mill Road. My neighbors, which are the Whitesels, the Mays, and the Corbetts, none of us received any letter from this company whatsoever and as a developer or anything. The first time we seen or knew anything about this was when they put the rezoning notices along the road. We have a major problem with them putting this amount of apartments right at the end of our road. We already have to deal with a massive amount of traffic coming down Rural Retreat Road, which you had spoke about, excess of 300 cars at least. We also have across the road it's a little shopping plaza which flows right into the intersection of Williams Mill Road. And I've never heard of any apartment complex having one entrance. Usually you have two entrances and exits, but they don't have any proposal for this. I think it's absolutely insane that they're putting something of this volume within that small little area. And again, Williams Mill Road, we're all retirees. It's a quiet little neighborhood. We all are well and septic. When they put Waterford in, they dynamited and they cracked a lot of our wells. We had a lot of contamination back in there when they put the water and sewer in there. So in the outcome of what they can do with their development, there's no telling what's going to happen to our property. And the traffic is going to be a major, major problem. We already have seen, since they put the apartments in, we've seen umpteen dozen accidents right there at the intersection of Rural Retreat, where everything flows onto University Drive. And there's always accidents there. So you're just talking about putting this into tenfold. And I'm telling you, most of the people that live in Williams Mill Road did not get an invitation to this meeting. And I'd really like to sit down with them and get people that are in our neighborhood and actually listen to what they're proposing, because I don't think there's anybody down there that's willing to accept what they're going to put here, whether it's high-end rental units or not. It's still rental units, and it's still transit people who don't have a home there that, they won't stay there long. We would like to see something more like across University, where they have the condominiums and townhomes, that people, will spend some money to keep the neighborhood nice. It doesn't make sense in that area. Actually, and like the other fellow said about the entrance off of University Drive, purchase that land, then have actually two entrances off of University and not flow it off to Williams Mill. I'm telling you, it's going to be an absolute nightmare trying to get in and out of that community. It already is for the apartments. So before you accept this or go over this, you need to really take a look at the traffic studies and the accidents that are already happening in that intersection, because this is just going to make it 100 times worse. Thank you.
Anyone else on this side? Okay.
I have a few more questions if I may.
Certainly.
Okay. I am Scotty Tanner. I am the HOA president of Waterford Association. I live at 996 Traymore Club Drive, so I actually back up to the property. Most of what has already been presented, Mark is the vice president, Justin and I are neighbors. I jotted down a list of things that I've heard throughout the community and concerns that they have. One of the things that I have personally not seen is the elevation of the fence and what will be around the perimeter. Justin mentioned about a lot of people entering our community. We already have that now with people going down and fishing. So we just want to make sure we maintain the integrity of that. I personally have concern if the fence is on the property line, because I live right there, and a 12-foot fence or something major would be significant for my home. As far as the design, I think this team, you guys, and I know they've worked with planning, has asked a lot of the same questions that we ask. Lighting, 4-foot, or I don't know the stories, but I guess they're 40-foot plus apartment complexes. So they'll be looking into my backyard and possibly into my home, but at least the buffer and how far these apartments are away from my home. But the most concern that I've heard from the community is construction traffic, either during the project or during the easement. When they're doing the easement, what's going to be the duration of that coming off of Limerick and the traffic. We do not want construction traffic, as you know, from the Keystone project, I believe it was, going across the bridge. So as this project is developed, we want to have assurance that that's not there. And then I don't know what the guidelines are, but what is the commitment? Is there a legal binding or something that when this plan is designed that there will not be traffic on Limerick? And I know that's already brought by this board, but it's definitely a concern that if there's not a road that's allowed here on University, that this becomes the only resort, because that would be very, if not catastrophic to our community for that amount of traffic. Lastly, I think I heard that there was a proposed stoplight there. I don't know if that is a factual statement or not, but there's already at the stoplight concerns, the lady just spoke about it, something that needs to be addressed. When you're leaving, coming down University, taking a left on Rural Retreat, you cannot see the oncoming traffic. There's a number of accidents that's already happened there. It's just the nature of how that was designed and set up. But those are the concerns that I've heard throughout the community. It did not get the, because the road is not going through there, it didn't get the attention that the Keystone projects in the west, I believe it's the west, had. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Tanner. Yes. Was there anyone else on this side that? Okay. Very good. All right. I'm going to go back to commissioners right now to see if there's anything else after you've heard the public comments that you have a question, or before we ask them to respond to several of these, or do you want them to go in first? Okay.
Got a question for staff, if that's okay.
Go right ahead.
What's to limit them from going above 4 stories? I don't know anything in the UDO off the top of my head that would, is it as applied based on it being a planned development? Okay.
Yeah, that's
And you're
correct.
required elevators, right?
Yeah, 3, you have to have it out.
Yeah, after 3.
I
you
have a
to-
question for staff as well, Mr. Black.
Go right ahead, Mr. Kirkpatrick.
MDR, square foot lots in MDR, are what, 6 to 7, is that correct?
For MDR, it's 9,000 for single-family detached. They're proposing multifamily. So all.
Right. I was just curious about the MDR. What was the square footage on the lots? I was wrong. Thanks.
All right, there were several questions that were brought up through the public comments, and I've jotted some of those down. First one, the notification, we do a 300-foot, so I'd say Williams Mill Road was outside of the 300-foot, or?
No, portions of Williams Mill are within the 300-foot, but once you get further beyond, outside that 300-foot distance, the road, it does extend. So there are portions outside that weren't part of the notice
Or
requirement.
they should have been, because we go right into that traffic zone. So you should have taken into account all those people that live down there, plus off of Shepherd Drive. You're talking about in excess of another 50, 60
The
houses.
city requirements are 300-foot.
Yeah, we're actually exceeding the state requirement.
We're exceeding state requirements as we are right now.
So is there a way for our community to get a meeting with you people and go over what you're proposing? Because nobody in our neighborhood knows what's going on.
Okay, we'll get to that in a second, because that's a good question. And I did want to talk about that if y'all could if you would set up. But one of the things, our buffering at 30 foot, is that the normal, or are we exceeding the normal?
So if you're looking at the existing zoning of the property now, or if it was to become high-density residential, the buffers would be the same. The max buffer would be a 20-foot type B buffer.
Right.
And so portions of their property are exceeding that in terms of the width and in terms of the number of materials and vegetation. They also have proposed in some areas a berm where then the plantings would be higher than what they would be right now. And the caliper size, they have also, these are all proffers that the developer has incorporated as part of their plan development. They've also increased the caliper size at the time of planting. So we have base standards they've gone above that.
So those are exceeding. Okay, very good.
They've also, and I don't want to speak for the applicant, they can go through the list of what their commitments are, so you can hear it from them directly, but they've also increased the percentage of open space. So if you were looking at a traditional high-density or medium-density apartment complex, they would be required to commit to 10% of open space. I believe they're over 50% of the site is open
It's
space.
open space. And this went through the staff and also was runoff addressed.
So I did want to just add to that comment. So what you have in front of you as an attachment is a conceptual map. It is not intended to be a site plan.
Right.
Should the project move forward through the rezoning process, they would still need to go back through the TRC, the technical review process,
Right.
with a full-blown site plan, with stormwater, landscape plan, you name it, elevations, parking has already been included as part of that, but they would be presenting their full package in terms of the site plan to the technical review committee. So there's different things that still need to be, in my opinion, ironed out to make the site plan, go through the approval process. But these maps are conceptual, to give you an idea of, you know, of their layout, so you can see the landscaping, you can see, you know, conceptually how it's done.
Okay. Mr. Kirkpatrick, you had a question?
This planned development versus a high density. How much higher is this density than high density based upon the square, the acreage and the unit?
Yeah, I'll give you a quick comparison between the medium density zoning district, which is what they're in now.
Right.
The high density, which would be the next step up, and their proposed plan development. So, and just using apartments, because that's what they're proposing. So under the medium density residential, and these are rough numbers, you can get about 125 units.
Math I just did.
Okay. Because it's 4.85 units per acre. If you go up to high density, it's 30 units per acre. So that would be just under 780 units. Their proposal is 330 units, so it's roughly 12 and a half units per acre. So I would say, you know, it's obviously much closer to the medium density than the high density.
That's what I have another question for you.
Yes.
Mr. Kirkpatrick?
Your development,
Yes.
can you guarantee no access off of Limerick?
Show me where that is. Is that where the water and sewer comes in? Is that where the water and sewer comes in?
Yes.
Absolutely.
That will not be, that will not be
No.
accessed at any time?
No.
Okay.
And you can put that in the deed.
Okay.
And you actually do have that guarantee by virtue of the site plan commitment.
Okay, but, so you understand, I have no desire,
Gotcha.
and the water and sewer is coming in there because that's where it's most,
Access point, yeah.
absolutely. But we have no plans, desire to do another access point.
Okay.
I don't want to get shot.
And so that can be put, so let it be written, so that you go. Any other commissioners have any comments or questions on what you've heard from the public or on your own?
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
It's also for the staff. If these other two parcels that are on University Drive become apartment buildings, what would the density increase to then? I mean, there's no set proposal yet, but it could truly be purely high density then, correct?
No, so those properties are currently also zoned medium density residential, so it'd still be that 4.85 units per acre. I'm not sure off the top of my head how many units that would yield, but it would not, they would have to come in, you know, just like any other property, they would have to come in with their own rezoning request if they wanted to exceed that, or if they wanted to change the zoning to allow for commercial development.
Yeah, but the roundabout sort of indicates, you know, there's going to be some density there. And it seems as though once one of these taboos is broken, the waters run in. This was all supposed to be a parkway at one time with no cuts. And it was the whole area. And then when Target came, the whole area started to go. So this could be the opening of the flood, right?
I think if you look at, you know, I'm not a traffic expert, but I think if you look at across University, I think that the intent of having a connection going across University towards these properties was contemplated prior to, you know, the discussion of whatever was going to happen on these sites. So I don't know, you know, and I think that it's very problematic for, as was mentioned by the applicant, the short distance of that stem through those other properties would make it very difficult to have appropriate and, I don't want to say, appropriate turning movements. The stem length, if you look at the vacant properties, the stem length there is just so short to accommodate, or even if it could accommodate, appropriate turning movements left and right. So the idea was to make it assuming that this site got developed as well as other sites from a best practice scenario, to allow for additional right-of-way to accommodate the longevity of the stem so that it makes it better movements for the entire area. That was the intent.
But it does give the impression that we're not just looking at this one piece, we're looking at a three-part piece by saying yes or no to one, you're accepting the whole
I
city
don't-
match. There's a
I don't know,
roundabout, et
we
cetera.
haven't seen any plan for those sites in terms of coming through the TRC, nor have we seen a rezoning request. So I can't say that you would be looking at anything that we have not, we haven't seen any commitments to it yet.
Basically, what we're seeing, Joan, is that we don't have any control over those two lots because that's not coming up. But that they have dedicated an area for a roundabout so that whoever does develop that area, they've dedicated
But I would think
easement there for
from the
them.
developer's point of view, if this is supposed to be a high-end area and you don't know what's going there, that could very negatively impact your development.
I think I will defer to the planning board. I think from what I've heard tonight, they're going to require that something's reasonable go in there and not be a detriment to what we're doing or to the city. I don't control it.
I will say this, Joan, that if a developer goes into a project and they're not that sure, but they're willing to roll the dice, then, it's kind of hard for me to try to tell them what to do or what not to do. So,
And keep in mind, this is a planned development, not
Yeah.
MDR, it's a planned development.
I know the difference. I understand.
okay, are there any other comments?
What's the rough distance from the edge of this parcel to the shoulder of University? 150 feet?
But there's 9 acres of frontage on University that
Yeah.
buffer this development and University Drive. I just looked it up, the reason why.
Okay.
No. But it's skinny.
Yeah,
It's real skinny.
that's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
This is less than 200 feet.
Mr. Parker?
Less than 200 feet.
Yeah.
Like a strip mall.
Any other comments? What is the staff's recommendation?
So staff has recommended this rezoning request for option number 1, provided in your consistency statement sheet. It is consistent with the land use plan and for the area called to be suburban residential, and the comprehensive plan's goal to encourage housing diversity throughout all Burlington neighborhoods. We have spent a lot of time working with the applicant to understand their purpose and intent in meeting the plan development goals and objectives, and so staff has to balance the areas where they're exceeding density controls and other restrictions versus the enhancements that they have provided. Included in your packet is an ordinance that outlines all of the enhancements. So that clearly will depict, where they are going above and beyond the ordinance in terms of, opportunities that the applicant can describe. So we are recommending this rezoning request.
Discussion, I haven't forgotten you. I want to ask that regardless of the vote tonight, if you would set up a meeting with the people that live Williams Mill Road
And Shepherd Drive.
and Shepherd Drive that did not.
Or outside about 300 foot, outside about 300 foot, mainly Meridian.
Mr. Black, I would be pleased to meet with them. I'd be pleased to listen to what they have to say. I heard a lot of comments. I think that we can make them made me not happy, but I think we can alleviate a lot of their concerns.
Thank you very much. Any other questions, comments to be made? No? If none, I will entertain a motion.
Make a motion.
Mr. Beasley.
Make a motion to recommend denial of the request to rezone medium-density residential MDR to planned development PD. The property is located on the north side of Williams Mill Road and Rural Retreat Road, southwest of the intersection of Rural Retreat Road and University Drive, addressed as 3949 Rural Retreat Road and consisting of Alamance County Tax Identification Number 106711, file number TRCPD-23-002. The motion is based upon the inconsistency of the proposed rezoning with the comprehensive plan and that the requested zoning is not necessary for this location. This action is reasonable and in the public interest, and that the requested rezoning is incompatible with existing land uses in the area and the current zoning is preferable for the area.
There is a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Aye. Roll call, please.
Okay. Chair Black?
No.
No in,
No, no
so
to the motion.
the motion is a denial, so
Yeah.
no, okay. Vice Chair Kirkpatrick?
No.
Beasley?
Yes.
Parker?
Yes.
Hill?
I'm opposed to the motion.
Okay. Joan?
I'm in favor of denial.
Okay, and Mr. Rayner?
Yes.
Yes, in favor of the denial.
Yes.
Who did I not get?
You got everybody. It's 4-3. 4-3 to deny.
Who am I missing? Mr. Black, Mr. Kirkpatrick,
Correct, we were both 4.
Ms. Hill,
She was 4. She was.
It's confusing.
When you do it, who's approval of the motion?
I was opposed to the motion.
Yeah. Let me just read this back, because I'm, Mr. Black, no. Mr. Kirkpatrick, no. Mr. Beasley, yes. Mr. Parker, yes. Ms. Hill, no. Ms. Nelson, yes. And Mr. Rayner, yes.
Correct.
Well, okay, so it's 4-3 in favor of the
The
denial.
denial. You will receive a letter from the city council as they will react to this recommendation and when there will be a hearing for that. Thank you for your time. So that we don't have this. That's okay. I knew what you were doing. Is there any new business to come before this commission? Any old business? No? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
There's a motion, is there a second?
Second.
There's a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.